When Olivia and I tied the knot, I believed we had sealed a love story straight out of a fairy tale. We were young, brimming with dreams, and completely enamored with the idea of building a life together. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most romantic ideals. Bills piled up, responsibilities grew heavier, and though I worked tirelessly at my job, the lifestyle we had envisioned seemed farther away with every passing month. That's when Marcus stepped into the picture. Marcus had been a close friend of Olivia's family for as long as I could remember. He was older, worldly, and exuded a confidence that made him seem invincible. When he offered Olivia a position at his company, it felt like a gift from the heavens. "You're talented, Olivia," he said one evening over dinner. "It's a waste not to have you out there making your mark." I admired him for extending this olive branch. Olivia was ecstatic. Her eyes lit up at the prospect of contributing financially and finding purpose beyond our home. I was thrilled for her, or at least that's what I told myself. She dove into her new role with fervor, often coming home with glowing stories of her day. "Marcus is a tough boss," she'd admit with a laugh, "but he's fair. He pushes everyone to be their best." At first, I didn't mind the extra hours she dedicated to work. I believed in supporting her ambitions. When I teased her about the late nights, she'd wave it off, saying, "It's just the adjustment period, Leo. Things will settle soon." But they didn't. Over time, I noticed small but significant changes. Olivia started dressing differently. Sharp blazers, sleek heels, a wardrobe that seemed too polished for her usual modest tastes. "It's just for work," she'd explain, dismissing my raised eyebrow. Then came the phone calls. She'd excuse herself during dinner, murmuring about deadlines and urgent updates. "It's Marcus again," she'd say with an apologetic smile. "He's pushing us hard on this new campaign. Can it wait until morning?" I'd ask, only half joking. "You don't understand, Leo," she responded, her tone defensive. "Marcus has high expectations. I can't let him down." Her words stung more than I let on. I wanted to trust her, to believe that her devotion to work was temporary, but doubts began to creep in. The tipping point came during a family barbecue. Marcus joined us, charming as ever, making everyone laugh with his stories. At one point, he raised a glass and a toast. "Leo, you're a lucky man," he said, his gaze lingering on Olivia longer than necessary. "She's one of a kind." The toast Marcus made lingered with me long after the barbecue ended. "She's one of a kind," he'd said with a look that felt too familiar, too personal. At the time, I brushed it off, telling myself I was reading into things. But something about his tone, the way he seemed to bask in Olivia's attention, planted a seed of unease in my mind. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed unaffected. "Marcus was just being kind," she said when I mentioned it later. "He's always supportive." Supportive. That word gnawed at me. It wasn't that I doubted Olivia's loyalty, at least not yet, but I began to question Marcus's intentions. Was his support really about helping her, or was there something more beneath the surface? The changes in Olivia became harder to ignore. She was no longer just tired after work. She seemed distracted, even when she was home. The intimacy we once shared, those late-night conversations and stolen glances, had been replaced by short, clipped exchanges. She responded to my questions with vague answers, her eyes flickering to her phone as if waiting for the next notification. One night, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her emails, I tried to bridge the gap. "Liv, do you want to watch that show we started last month? We never finished it." Without looking up, she replied, "Maybe later. I have to send a few emails for Marcus before tomorrow's meeting." "Emails at 9 o'clock? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She finally looked at me, her expression tinged with frustration. "You don't get it, Leo. This job is demanding. If I don't keep up, I'll fall behind." As weeks turned into months, the distance between us widened. Olivia's late nights became the norm, and our conversations grew increasingly superficial. I felt like an outsider in my own home, a guest in a marriage that had once been my safe haven. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking things, that every relationship went through rough patches, but my doubts refused to fade. One night, I decided to surprise her at the office. She had texted earlier, saying she'd be working late, and I thought maybe a cup of her favorite coffee would brighten her evening. When I arrived, the office was quiet, almost deserted. Her desk was empty, the computer screen dark. A cleaning staff member passed by, and I stopped him. "Excuse me, do you know if Olivia is still here?" He looked at me, puzzled. "Oh, she left hours ago." My stomach twisted. When Olivia came home that night, I confronted her. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "At work, of course," she replied casually, dropping her bag on the counter. "I stopped by the office," I said, watching her reaction. Her face faltered for the briefest moment before she recovered. "We wrapped up early," she said smoothly. "I grabbed dinner with some colleagues afterward." "Sorry, I should have let you know." Her explanation was plausible, even reasonable, but the doubt in my chest had taken root. The cracks in our relationship became impossible to ignore after that night. Olivia continued to spend long hours at the office, often returning home well past dinner. I began to notice how much her conversations revolved around Marcus, his expectations, his deadlines, his demands. "He's such a perfectionist," she'd say, shaking her head. "But it's only because he wants the best out of us." I wanted to believe her, to trust that her dedication was about work and nothing more. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, that chipped away at my faith. Like when Marcus called during dinner and Olivia excused herself to take the call in another room. Or when she mentioned staying late for yet another meeting, her tone almost too casual. One evening, while putting away laundry, I found a receipt in Olivia's coat pocket. It was from a high-end restaurant downtown, dated the night she had claimed to be working late. When I asked her about it, she didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that was from a team dinner. Marcus insisted we all go out to celebrate finishing the campaign." "Funny," I said, holding up the receipt. "There's only one entree and one drink listed here." Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment, I thought she might confess. But instead, she deflected. "You're reading too much into this, Leo. It's just a receipt." Determined to get to the bottom of things, I began to pay closer attention to Olivia's behavior. The tension in our home was palpable, but I tried to keep up appearances for the sake of our daughter, Mia. She was too young to understand the strain between her parents, and I wanted to shield her from the growing turmoil. One night, after Olivia had gone to bed, I found myself staring at her phone on the nightstand. It buzzed quietly, a notification lighting up the screen for a brief moment. I knew it was wrong, but the urge to look was overwhelming. Unlocking her phone, I hesitated for a moment before scrolling through her messages. My heart pounded as I found a thread between her and Marcus. The texts were casual at first, discussions about work deadlines, but as I scrolled further, the messages became more personal. "Last night was great. Can't wait to see you again," one read. Another said, "Leo doesn't suspect anything, right?" My breath caught in my throat. The confirmation I'd been dreading was right there in front of me. The messages on Olivia's phone were like shards of glass piercing through every ounce of trust I'd placed in her. My fingers trembled as I held the device, rereading the words to ensure I wasn't misinterpreting. Each message was a dagger twisting deeper with the realization that this wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was deliberate. It was betrayal. I sat there clutching her phone, the weight of my discovery suffocating. The love we had built, the years of shared dreams and sacrifices, now felt like a cruel illusion. The sound of water running in the bathroom told me Olivia was still in the shower. My mind raced. Should I confront her now, or wait and gather more evidence? When she finally emerged, her hair wrapped in a towel, she stopped mid-step at the sight of me sitting on the edge of the bed. Her smile faded when she saw her phone in my hand. "What's this?" I asked, my voice low but steady. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. "Leo, I can explain." "Explain?" I interrupted, the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "Explain what, Olivia? The texts with Marcus talking about last night? Or the part where he asks if I suspect anything?" She froze, her face draining of color. "It's not what you think," she stammered, her voice trembling. I stood, pacing the room as the fury overtook me. "Don't insult me by saying it's nothing. How long has this been going on, Olivia? How long have you been lying to me?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "Not now." Olivia sank onto the bed, her hands covering her face as she sobbed. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered, her voice muffled. "Didn't mean anything?" I snapped, my voice rising. "So all those late nights, all those lies, they were meaningless? Do you even hear yourself right now?" Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't stop. "You made a choice, Olivia. Over and over again. You chose him. And what about Mia? What about our family?" She looked up at me, her tear-streaked face full of regret. "I was lonely, Leo," she admitted, her voice breaking. "You were so busy with work, and I felt invisible. Marcus, he made me feel seen." Her words cut deeper than any blade could. "So your solution was to destroy our family?" I asked bitterly. "To betray me?" "I'm sorry," she cried, reaching for my hand, but I stepped back. "Sorry doesn't fix this," I said coldly. "Sorry doesn't undo the lies." The next few days were a blur of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Olivia tried to apologize, to explain, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the chaos at home. When I wasn't at work, I spent as much time as possible with Mia. She was the one bright spot in this nightmare, her laughter a reminder of what I was fighting to protect. But Olivia's betrayal lingered like a storm cloud. Every time I saw her, the weight of what she had done bore down on me. I couldn't look at her without seeing the messages, without hearing Marcus's smug words in my mind. One evening, I decided I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. I needed to know the full extent of Olivia's betrayal. I hired a private investigator to gather evidence. It felt extreme, but I needed to protect myself and Mia if things spiraled further. The investigator was thorough, combing through phone records, credit card statements, and even surveillance footage. What he uncovered confirmed my worst fears. Olivia and Marcus had been meeting in secret for months. The high-end dinners, the hotel stays. It was all there, documented in painful detail. When he handed me the file, I felt sick. The photos, the receipts, the timelines, it was undeniable. I had the truth now, but it didn't make the betrayal any easier to bear. Armed with the evidence, I confronted Olivia again. This time, I didn't let her deflect or dodge my questions. "I know everything," I said, tossing the file onto the dining table. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the folder. "What is this?" "Proof," I said bluntly. "Proof of what you've been doing behind my back. The dinners, the hotels, it's all there, Olivia. You can't lie your way out of this." Her shoulders slumped as she sat down, flipping through the pages. Tears filled her eyes, but I refused to let myself feel pity. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "But it did," I replied coldly. "And now I have to deal with the mess you've created." As the reality of divorce loomed, I felt a mix of emotions, grief, anger, and a faint sense of relief. I couldn't live with Olivia's betrayal, but I also feared what this would mean for Mia. The day I filed for divorce was both liberating and gut-wrenching. I'd spent sleepless nights wrestling with the decision, but in the end, I knew it was the only way forward. Mia deserved stability, and I deserved to reclaim my dignity. When I handed Olivia the divorce papers, she looked at me with a mixture of shock and despair. "Leo, please, we can fix this," she said, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "There's nothing to fix, Olivia. You made your choices, and this is the consequence." "But what about Mia?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "What about our family?" "Our family?" I repeated bitterly. "You didn't think about our family when you were sneaking around with Marcus. Don't pretend this is about me." And with that, the conversation ended, her sobbing as I walked away. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, but also the faint hope of a fresh start. The fallout from Olivia's actions rippled through every aspect of our lives. Friends and family who had once admired our relationship were now tiptoeing around us, unsure of what to say or how to act. My parents, who had always been supportive of Olivia, were devastated when they learned the truth. "I never thought she was capable of this," my mother said, shaking her head. "Neither did I," I replied, the bitterness evident in my voice. Mia, thankfully, was too young to fully understand what was happening. I did my best to shield her from the tension at home, but she could sense that something was wrong. "Why isn't Mommy smiling anymore?" she asked one evening, her innocent question cutting me to the core. "She's just tired, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "But don't worry. Everything will be okay." While I focused on creating a stable environment for Mia, Olivia's life began to unravel. News of her affair with Marcus had spread beyond our circle, reaching her workplace. Marcus's reputation as a charismatic leader quickly crumbled under the weight of the scandal. The company's board of directors was furious. Evelyn, a senior board member, wasted no time in calling for an investigation. "This isn't just a personal issue," she said during an emergency meeting. "This is a breach of trust and a stain on our company's image." Marcus tried to downplay the situation, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Within weeks, he was forced to resign, his departure framed as a mutual decision to protect the company's reputation. Olivia, meanwhile, became the subject of whispers and judgment at work. Once respected for her dedication, she was now seen as a liability. Her colleagues avoided her, and her once bright career prospects dimmed overnight. With Marcus gone, the cracks in his personal life began to show. His wife, Sarah, had been unaware of his affair until the scandal broke. When she found out, she was devastated. Sarah wasted no time filing for divorce, taking their 2 teenage sons with her. The once polished image of the perfect family was shattered, leaving Marcus alone and disgraced. As for Olivia, she tried to salvage what little she could of her reputation. She sought therapy, hoping to understand why she had made such destructive choices. One day, she called me. Her voice was hesitant. "Leo, I'm in therapy," she said. "I know it doesn't change what I've done, but I want to be better, for Mia and for myself." I didn't respond immediately. Her efforts to atone were admirable, but they couldn't erase the damage she had caused. "I'm glad you're trying," I said finally, keeping my tone neutral. Olivia's attempts to rebuild her relationship with Mia were slow and painstaking. Mia, though young, had sensed the tension between us and was wary of her mother's efforts. "I don't want to go with Mommy," she said one afternoon as Olivia arrived to pick her up. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said gently. "She just wants to spend time with you." Mia reluctantly agreed, but her interactions with Olivia remained strained. Watching from the sidelines, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I wanted Mia to have a relationship with her mother, but I couldn't forget what Olivia had done to us. As Olivia worked to repair her bond with Mia, I began to focus on rebuilding my own life. I reconnected with old friends, many of whom I hadn't seen in years. One friend, Ethan, suggested we join a local hiking group. "Fresh air and exercise are the best therapy," he said with a grin. Reluctantly, I agreed, and to my surprise, the experience was cathartic. The physical challenge of climbing steep trails and the camaraderie of the group helped me release some of the anger and pain I'd been carrying at home. I rediscovered my love for woodworking. The rhythmic sound of the saw and the scent of freshly cut wood provided a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. I started with small projects, a bookshelf for Mia's room, a new coffee table for the living room. But as my confidence grew, so did my ambitions. Each finished piece felt like a step toward reclaiming my sense of self. As weeks turned into months, life started to take on a new rhythm. Mia and I created our own routines, filling the house with laughter and warmth. Friday nights became our movie nights with popcorn and animated films. Saturday mornings were dedicated to pancake breakfasts, where Mia insisted on flipping the pancakes herself. These small rituals reminded me of what truly mattered. While my heart still bore the scars of betrayal, I found solace in being there for Mia. Her laughter was my anchor, her joy my purpose. One Saturday, as we were cleaning up after breakfast, Mia asked, "Do you think Mommy will ever come back home?" The question caught me off guard. I crouched to her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Mommy and I both love you very much, Mia," I said carefully. "But sometimes, even when people love each other, they can't live together anymore. That doesn't mean we love you any less." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I just want everyone to be happy." Her words stayed with me long after she'd run off to play. While Mia adjusted to the new normal, Olivia continued to reach out. She sent letters to Mia, apologizing for the mistakes she had made and expressing her love. At first, Mia was hesitant to respond, but over time, she began writing back. One evening, after Mia had gone to bed, Olivia called. Her voice was subdued, filled with regret. "Thank you for not keeping me from her, Leo. I know I don't deserve it." I hesitated before responding. Mia deserves to have both her parents in her life. But that doesn't mean we're okay, Olivia. There's still a lot to work through. "I understand," she said softly. "I just want you to know that I'm trying to be better." Her words were genuine, but I knew that rebuilding trust, if it was even possible, would take much more than words. Meanwhile, Marcus's life had unraveled completely. His forced resignation and public scandal made him a pariah in the business world. His wife, Sarah, finalized their divorce, taking the family home and full custody of their sons. Rumors swirled about Marcus's attempts to start over in a new city, but his reputation followed him like a shadow. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a grim sense of satisfaction. Marcus had built his life on arrogance and deceit, and now he was paying the price. But despite my anger, I also felt a pang of pity. He had lost everything: his career, his family, his social standing. He was a cautionary tale of what happens when you let selfishness consume you. At work, I threw myself into new projects, determined to channel my pain into productivity. My boss noticed my renewed focus and offered me a leadership position on a major account. "This is a chance to prove yourself, Leo," he said. "I think you're ready." The promotion was a welcome distraction and a validation of my efforts. For the first time in months, I felt like I was regaining control of my life. One day, Ethan invited me to join him for a weekend retreat with the hiking group. "It's not just about hiking," he explained. "It's about resetting your perspective." The retreat, nestled in a mountain valley, was exactly what I needed. The physical challenge of climbing steep trails and the serenity of the natural surroundings helped me release some of the anger I'd been holding on to. One evening, as we sat around a campfire, Ethan turned to me. "You've been through hell, Leo, but I've seen you fight your way back. That takes strength." His words stayed with me, a reminder that I wasn't defined by what had happened to me, but by how I chose to move forward. Back home, I continued to focus on woodworking. The projects grew more ambitious: a dining table, a set of chairs, even a custom bed frame for Mia's room. Each completed piece felt like a small victory, a tangible symbol of progress. Mia loved watching me work, often sitting on a stool nearby with her crayons and paper. "Can I help, Daddy?" she'd ask, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Of course," I'd reply, handing her a small piece of sandpaper. "Just don't tell Grandma I let you use tools." Her laughter filled the workshop, a reminder of the joy that still existed in our lives. Olivia's efforts to rebuild her relationship with Mia began to bear fruit. During one visit, I overheard Mia say, "I forgive you, Mommy, but I don't want you to hurt Daddy again." The simplicity of her words carried a profound weight. Olivia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I promise, Mia, I'll do everything I can to make things right." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a step forward. As I watched Olivia work to repair her bond with Mia, I felt a mixture of relief and closure. She was making an effort, and that was enough for me. But I also knew that our marriage was over, and I was okay with that. The next step was finalizing the divorce. The process was emotionally taxing, but I approached it with a sense of purpose. I was fighting not just for myself, but for Mia's future. With the divorce finalized, I began to entertain the possibility of moving on. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but I allowed myself to explore the idea of happiness with someone new. One evening, I met a woman named Clara at a friend's gathering. She was kind, funny, and easy to talk to. We exchanged numbers, and over time, our conversations became a bright spot in my day. As Clara and I grew closer, I took things slowly, mindful of Mia's needs and my own healing process. Clara understood my situation and never pressured me for more than I was ready to give. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful, not just for the future but for the person I was becoming. Looking back, the journey had been long and painful, but it had also been transformative. The betrayal had left scars, but they no longer defined me. I had built a new life for myself and Mia, one filled with love, laughter, and resilience. Olivia remained a part of Mia's life, but our paths had diverged, and I was at peace with that. As I stood in the workshop, sanding the finishing touches on a new project, Mia ran in holding a drawing she had made. "It's for you, Daddy," she said, her smile lighting up the room. I took the drawing, my heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. It's perfect." In that moment, I knew I had finally found my way forward, and it was beautiful.